We're going to use a vise to hold your work. If you are trying to use, hold your material, hold the tool, and use a scribe, you're going to find it very difficult. Okay, having 3 arms would be useful. Because you don't have 3 arms, we're going to use a vise. Actually, I didn't describe what this tool was, did I? Did I?
No.
That's a scribe. Alright, we'll get to that. So the first thing you want to do is to protect your work. Now, depending on what you're making, you may not need, you may or may not need to do this. Because we want the surface of our dice to be nice and smooth, we're going to place some tape over the jaws. The jaws of the vise have like little teeth on it. If you run your finger over it, you'll feel it's a little bit rough. This is very, very hard as well. So if you tighten your work in the vise, really, really tight, it's going to leave marks on your work. It'd have to be, well, I have seen them mark the mild steel. Mild steel is the material we're using for the dice, but it's for softer metal like brass and copper. If you put them in the vise, you want to have some kind of protection, otherwise it will mark your work. Then you're going to place your work in. When you pop it in, you want to have it sitting up about halfway, okay? Because you don't want this edge sitting on the vise, okay? It needs to be sitting above the vise. I'm going to mark out number 3 because, there was a step we need to do before that. Whoa, lucky. I'm going to mark out number 3, but before we do that, get a marker. There's permanent markers here, and then you're going to write down the value that you're going to put on each face. Okay? So if I'm putting a 6 on this one, what's going to go on the opposite side?
1.
If I'm putting a 5 on this side, 2, and a 4, 3. The reason we do this is because you're going to be going through very similar processes to mark out each face, and having that reminder there means you're less likely to make a mistake. I showed you, I think, the number 6 that had... Someone's taken it. I had a number 6, someone's drilled it in the middle. There's generally someone that'll do that. Okay, we'll wait and see who that might be. Pop it in the vise, leaving it about halfway up. The first thing you're going to do for the number 3 is we need diagonals across both sides, okay, because we need to identify where the centre is. So place the centre finder up against both of these faces. It needs to be pushed firmly up against it. Then taking your scribe, you're not pushing down and drawing it across, okay? It needs to be on a slight angle away from the straight edge and slightly towards the direction of travel. So if I'm going this way, I'll do it towards me. And if I'm going this way, I'll do it in that direction. So hold it firmly. Now you don't have to push down really hard and really drag it. Okay, you can go over it several times. If you are going over it several times, you have to make sure that the tool you're using doesn't move, okay, which becomes a little more difficult when we use the square. Okay. So there we have one line from corner to corner, and then I flip it around and go the other direction. Right, so now I've accurately identified where the centre of that cube is. The next step is slightly more difficult. So, up on the back shelf there are these. Okay, this is a square. Okay, this is actually called a machine square. You'll notice that the this here is solid metal, okay, and it's attached to a solid metal blade, unlike the woodworking ones which tend to be wood. I need to mark out 2 vertical lines here to identify where my other 2 pips go. Oh, this was a bit annoying. Right. If I place my square like this, using the outside edge, there's only that much of this handle against my work. So what you want to do is use the inside edge. Okay, so if I place it like that, you can see that that whole surface has the tool up against it. We're going to take a ruler, and if I place the ruler up against the edge of my square and then move it back until I get to 5 millimeters. I might put my specs on so I can see. Alright. So 5 millimeters, and then I can get my scribe and scribe the line across there. Now this is where you want to make sure that this is not going to move. Because I'm repeating it several times, if I move this, I'm going to have more than one scribe line, and then I'm not going to know where to. So there's one mark and there's the other one up there. If I've got more than one scribe line, it's going to be very difficult to know where to put the punch in, which will become clear with the next step. Alright, so I'll turn it round. Again, on the other side, 5 millimeters. I'm going to do this one slightly differently though. Okay. Now, if I've got a point up here for my first dot, I don't need to know where the line goes through up here. I just need to know where it crosses the bottom one. And it moved. Okay, so I'll take my scribe and I'll just run the scribe through that bottom line. Okay. It's a bit difficult to see on this. Can you see it? Just there. Okay, so I've only gone through that section there. I'm going to put 1 dot here, 1 dot here, and 1 dot here. Can you stop touching that? Now the last step is to use the centre punch to mark out where you're going to drill. Now we need to be able to see where they're intersecting. Come on, focus. That'll do. Alright, so you can see down here I've got 2 lines intersecting. This is where we're going to use the centre punch. Oh, that's not going to work. I've got to get this out of the way so I can... Oh, there we go. When you use a centre punch, it's got a point on it. When you come up here to grab your centre punch, you'll notice some of them, most of them, have kind of a different shape. So this one's a lot wider. Okay, this one goes down a lot narrower, and this one is a little bit wider than that. These are probably the easiest ones to use, the narrow ones, because you can see the point a lot clearer. So you're going to place your the work on the metal strip on the edge of your bench, because you don't want it to be on the timber, which is a bit softer. You want it to be on a hard surface. To use the centre punch, you want to have it in your non-dominant hand. Okay, I'm right-handed. If I line this up with my right hand, then I've got to swap hands to use the hammer. Okay, so non-dominant hand. In this case, I've got it in my left hand. Place the point. So you can see I'm holding the centre punch on an angle. Place the point right where those two lines intersect. And then lift it up so it's vertical and strike it with a hammer. Okay, and you'll end up with a dot that should be exactly where those two lines intersect. Do the same in the centre. And then the last one. Oh, I did it the wrong way around. I've got to put another mark up there. That's all right. All I've got to do is put it back in, measure and mark where the one goes up here. When you're striking it with the hammer, what you don't want to do is... Oh, where's the crappy one? Sorry? A dot. Yes. So, when you're marking, I'll explain why we're using the centre punch, but when you're striking it, you just strike it once and then have a look. If you haven't gone, if it's not deep enough, place the punch back over and go again. You don't want to go like that. That's not how we're using the punch. It's highly likely if you do that you're going to end up with punch marks all around where you actually want them. Okay? Because if you're not holding it down firmly enough, it'll bounce out, shift to the side slightly, and then you'll have little holes all around where you want it to be. When we punch that point, the surface looks a little bit like this. Okay? We have the surface, and it's sort of raised up a little, and then there's an indentation. Oh. Lovely. Okay, so when we're drilling, okay, the drill bit wants to go into the centre of a hole. Okay. If we don't have that centre point punched, the drill bit wants to wander around. If you're pushing a hard piece of metal against another hard piece of metal, okay, it's just going to move around. So we have this indentation. The drill bit's going to find its way in here. So the first step of being accurate is you're marking out. The second step is accurately punching where the centre of these holes is going to go. Then the third bit is the drill press, which I think I'll show you next lesson. Once you've done one face, flip it over and do the other one. I would do it in groups of 2. So go 6 and 1, 5 and 2, 4 and 3. Okay. That's all. All right. Get to work.